Hi, afternoon guys. If it's Friday, it's Dan and Dirty Woodscraft. Stay with me. Okay guys, today I'm going to talk something real quick, but it's real important. Um, Carrying meat to the field to cook. Now, having a steak on that first night out in the woods on an overnighter is just great. Or carrying that roast to put on a spit and slowly roast over the coals. It's fantastic. But we still have to utilize a little bit of modern know-how doing that. And I've seen a lot of videos where these guys are doing the walk-in and it's beautiful, you know, walking through nature. And they get down to the edge of the lake and they build up this big roaring fire, and then they produce this 2.5 pound T-bone steak out of just nowhere. That requires a bit more work than that, a little bit more thinking than that. So you still have to transport that meat safely due to bacteria and etc. and keep it refrigerated or keep it preserved up until the moment of cooking, because if not, you have to cook that steak absolutely done in case there's any bacteria. So what I began doing for myself as a way of carrying meat like that, where I'm not going to be toting a cooler, is this procedure. You want to take in any kind of marinating or whatever, do that well ahead of time. Usually like the weekend before, I will take and take the selected cut of meat, do any kind of prepping, cutting away anything I'm taking off, etc. I will then add whatever herb spices or whatever marinade, and I will let it soak for 24 hours or so in the marinade. And then removing the excess marinade into that, I will then take it and put it into the freezer, usually inside of like a quart or whatever size Ziploc bag, freezer bag. And I will then freeze it for 2 days, 48 hours, freeze it so it is absolutely frozen hard as a rock all the way through, okay? At the end of that 48 hours, I'll take it back out and I will wrap the entire thing in aluminum foil, still inside of that bag. At the day I'm going out for the day hike or the overnighter, I want it frozen absolutely solid as rock, because that's going to buy me time. Down here in my south, as you know, it's hot temperatures and things like that, and I want to keep that hunk of meat below that bacteria threshold as long as possible. So how do I transport such a hunk of meat to the field without having to tote a cooler for that one night, overnight, that pork loin, that whatever? A thermos. Now I got this one several years ago, and it's just a Stanley type thermos, and you unscrew it and it becomes a big wide mouth. This is big enough for a big pork loin or whatever, wrapped up in such a way to be slidden into this. And then I want to make sure that I put water around it, I seal it back up, and I put it back in the freezer for at least 30-40 minutes before I take it into the field. Now in that 30-40 minutes, that water I put in there is not going to freeze solid, and that is not going to burst my thermos, and you can do that. If you think, well, I'll just put the whole thing in the thermos and put it in the freezer, it will expand, because water expands and it will burst your thermos. Don't do that. But by doing it, it'll be absolutely as cold as it can be. And then this is going to go inside of my blanket roll, inside of my poncho liner, whatever big fluffy type of bedding I'm carrying. This is going to be in the core of it. It's going to be wrapped around this to insulate it as long as possible. Now, I will then hike in with this in my rucksack or on top of my rucksack or whatever, keeping it as out of sun as much as possible. Yes, you can't help that when you're just walking, but anytime I come to a rest, I will put it in the shade, okay? It will thaw out slowly over the course of a few hours. Depending on the conditions, it can thaw out in 12 hours, it can thaw out in 2 hours. It just depends on the conditions, okay? When I get to the actual camp where I'm going to be cooking, when it comes time to cooking, I don't bring this out until the last minute, okay? I've got my fire going, I got my bed of coals ready, and etc. And then I bring out the meat. It should be thawed out. If it is not fully thawed out yet, well, it will thaw out quickly in the warmth and etc. So I'll put it onto the spit and put it close to the fire. Not in the fire yet, but close to the fire. This will allow it to completely thaw out. Usually the core may still be a little frozen, and by simply putting it on the spit and putting it within like a foot or two of the fire so it's warming it up, it will thaw out completely and be ready to cook. Then I will cook it as normal. This way I prevent bacteria and stuff like that becoming a problem for me, because you don't want to get dysentery out there. That's no fun at all. So, to recap, if you're going to be transporting a nice hunk of meat or something to the field for that overnight stay or whatever, where you're not going to be carrying a cooler, you need some form of transportation that's going to insulate it. Now, if you don't like the thermos, there's also these freezer bags for wine. There's a bag that's big enough that it's got gel in it, that you can put the whole bag in the freezer and freeze it solid, and then slide the meat into it, close it up, and put that into a larger bag to put into your bedding. But it works fairly well, and I have several times gone out. It got to be dinner time, I'm ready, I brought my steak out or my loin out or whatever I'm toting. I put it on the thing and it's been perfectly thawed out, ready to go, and I was able to cook it right then without any hindrance. It's a simple, easy thought process once you think about it on how to transport the meat to the field. I do not recommend chicken. I do not recommend small pieces of meat with this method or any method like that. The more surface area you have, let's say cubed up pieces, the greater the risk of bacteria having a form. More surface area, more risk. So if I was going to transport, let's say, a hunk of chicken, I want the biggest solid piece of chicken I can get. I'll debone it here before I take it. And then when I get there, then I'll bring it out and I'll cut it up into the pieces I'm going to make kebabs with or whatever to minimize that. As long as it's sealed up as one unit, only the outside surface is at risk. Once I start cutting it up, I'm increasing my surface. Hope this gives you some ideas, guys. Please leave any comments below, and thank you very much for supporting my channel. And do me a favor before you leave, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Till next time, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.